this was the best podcast episode I've listened in 2024. And in case you don't want to listen to the 3 hours of it, I'm gonna summarize it to you today. For any relationship to succeed, with your personal relationships, your business relationships, your relationship with your parents, you need very good communication. And this is why this podcast was mind-blowing to me. So this podcast is called The Diary of the CEO by Stephen Bartlett. I moved to Minnesota from New York. I lived 9 years in New York where I didn't have a car. And right now I drive everywhere. I don't think you can live in Minnesota without a car, to be honest. It's too freaking cold to walk outside. And while I'm driving, I listen to Stephen's podcast. And Stephen always starts his episodes with this introduction that kind of goes like this. So-and-so. So imagine that he's interviewing me, right? He goes, Julia, who are you and why people should listen to this podcast? Which I think is a brilliant hook. So he asks the question, and this woman proceeds to introduce herself as, I am a recovering awkward person. That is pretty interesting. I want to know, why is she awkward? How is she recovering from this? So I want to keep listening. Highly successful people speak a hidden language. The language of cues. If you don't know how to interpret the cues that people are sending you, and you don't know how to send the right cues to other people, you are missing critical elements of communication and success. I mean, at that point, I'm locked in. I'm locked in this podcast, I'm driving, and there's nothing that will stop me from listening to this entire podcast, because that was just a great introduction. She talks about communication, she talks about success in business. I want to keep listening. What I decided to do is to talk about the top 3 things that I've learned from this podcast and communication tools and tips that I've already started to implement in my professional life, and I've been seeing results pretty quickly, to the point that I thought it was important to bring this here to you. So to contextualize, Vanessa Van Edwards is a communication specialist. She studies human communication. She's a best-selling author. She's a public speaker. She has a great TED Talk, and she spent years researching cues, a hidden language in people's communication. We can learn how to communicate better and get to an empathetic communication by dialing up cues of warmth and cues of competency. And when I'm talking cues, is literally signs, like a nod is a cue, a hand gesture is a cue, the intonation of your voice is a cue. It's like the non-verbal communication that can ultimately make you succeed in business and in life. So here are the main 3 things I took from this podcast, and I would like for you to take it as well, because I really think this could improve your life in business and personally. Point number 1 is the importance of hand gestures. So Vanessa explained that hand gestures are extremely powerful, and here's why. This goes back to caveman days. When you showed your hands, it literally signaled that you were in a trap. You didn't have a spear or a rock, you're not gonna attack the other person. You kind of went, hi friend, and the person internally is like, okay, that's a friend. And we carry that with us to this day. When people can see your hands, they feel more comfortable and connected to you, which fosters a better communication. So the next time you are on a Zoom meeting or Google meeting, here are the 2 things you're gonna do. You're gonna start a meeting, join the call, and immediately flash your palm. Hi guys, good morning. Hi guys, good seeing you. And I know that it sounds silly, but by doing this, according to her research, we are making people feel more comfortable. And I actually started thinking about very good communicators, usually salespeople that I speak with, and I remember them all doing this. It's like, hi guys, good morning. Hi, I'm Julia, how's it going? So pretty easy. I started implementing this in some of my meetings. I actually see a positive change, and that's the number 1 thing you're gonna do. The second thing you're gonna do is not hide your hands. So she explains that when you cannot see someone's hand, you feel this discomfort. It's like, what is she doing with her hands? Where are her hands? Like, what's under the table? And this is very easy for us to do in a Zoom call, because the person can only see up to here, like here in this frame of you. And you can just leave your hands on the desk, but the idea here is to make a conscious effort to show your hands. Express when you're speaking, put your hands on your desk. This is actually a high competency cue that she demonstrated and taught on this podcast. When you wanna level the competency that you have, you do this sign. So show more your hands. People are 12.5 times more likely to believe in your hand gestures than in your words. 12.5 times more likely. This is huge. She explains that it's just really hard to lie with your gestures. It's really hard to say, number 5, because you're showing 3. So you're gonna see that 3 in my hand, and this is gonna outweigh 12.5 times more than me saying the word 5. So that means that if you match your gestures to your words, you will come across more competent and trustworthy. Easy ways that you can do this is, today I have 2 important topics. Today I want to talk about points number 1, 2, and 3. Literally like gesticulate. Today I have something big to share with you guys. Or that is so small, we don't even need to talk about it. This is just so small. To make this dismissive gesture complements what you're speaking, and you'll come across as someone that they can trust more. Okay, so we wrapped up point number 1, which is the power of hand gestures to signify comfort and trustworthiness. Point number 2, and I think this is probably one of the most mind-blowing pieces of data that I received recently, is the impact that other people's nonverbal communication have on us, and vice versa, the impact that our nonverbal communication have on other people. So the question that they were trying to answer in this study was, can high-achieving people, in fact, other workers in an office, and can people get infected by low performers? And they ran this incredible study through thousands of people, and they discovered that if you are sitting in an office or at your home, your co-working space, within 25 feet of a high performer person, your own performance will go up by 15%. However, and this is the mind-blowing part, if you're sitting within 25 feet of a low performer, your own performance is gonna go down 30%. This means that we get infected by other people's nonverbal communication, especially the negative ones. The negative is the double the negative, right? It's 15% up and 30% down. It's because people's emotions and feelings and cues are contagious. The cues that we pick up from other people can directly impact our work and our day-to-day lives. So I listened to that and I thought, okay, this is huge. And here are the sub-points within the second point that I want to bring that I believe we should pay attention to thinking business-wise, especially as new business owners, as people who want to start a business, start a freelancer gig. Here are my conclusions listening to this stat. Number 1, starting a business is already so freaking hard that we need all the support that we can get. And that idea that we are the 5 closest people around us, it's very true. So if we are starting a business and we are sharing the news and the thought process and sharing this vulnerable place that we are of, I'm gonna create a business or I'm going to quit my job to invest more time in my business. If you share this with people who will give you the wrong cues, you will get infected by their nonverbal communication. And here's what I mean. There's so many people in our lives that love us so much that they are afraid for us. They are nervous for us. They don't want us to fail and be frustrated and be disappointed. So if we share the news with someone who's like, ooh, are you sure you're gonna do this? This is gonna directly impact your decision making and impact the route of your business. However, if you share this with a high performer, with someone who's sending you the right type of cues, I believe that they can boost you up and help you in this journey. Point number 2, when hiring a team, hiring freelancers, hiring full-time employees, there is this quote that I really like that says the first 100 people in your business will determine the next 1,000. And this is something that was very prominent in my last job at this marketing startup agency in New York, about bringing the right people to build a culture. And if you bring someone who ends up misaligning with the culture, you can really see this domino effect of many people going down with them. And when I listen to this stat, I'm like, this just completely complements this theory that if we bring a low performer to our team, everyone around them is going to decrease their performance. However, if you start bringing A players, you only bring high performers to work with you, and you can identify and hire those special people in the world, your own performance and your team will go up 15%, which is massive. I don't think anything is more impactful than this stat when we talked about building a team. So I guess my tip here is develop a good hiring cycle, develop a good recruitment process, start learning how to identify and separate A players from B players and C players in terms of a work environment, in terms of the work that you are doing and your culture. Okay, and the final point number 3, probably the most relevant of today's video, is we can study and learn how to use those cues to our advantage. Being a good communicator is not something that we are born with. Like, it's not something that is on our DNA, which sometimes is very easy for us to think. It's like, okay, that person's just it's a very well communicator. That person's a salesperson. That person's outgoing. But having the knowledge that we can study and apply tools and techniques that will make our communication better, to me, is the best news of this podcast. So when you go to look at Vanessa Van Edwards' work, there are 2 types of cues that she teaches. Warmth cues, to show that you're approachable and kind and you're listening to people and you're empathizing with people, and competency cues, which are cues to show that you know your stuff and you know what you're doing. She argues that you have to have enough of both. Enough, but not too much. Too much of anything is bad, little of anything is bad. You have to have enough and also be able to identify when it's time to dial up each one of them. She gives this example that I think everybody can relate to, is if you're in a meeting and people are interrupting you all the time. She says that you can dial up your competency cues to make them stop interrupting you and say, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I need my space to speak on this meeting. On the other side, when you think people are not connecting with you, you're not approachable enough, you can increase your warmth cues. And this goes from anything like tilting your head to deliver bad news, or nodding to let people know that you're paying attention to them. And if you don't find the right balance between them, you might have a $1 billion idea, the best business idea in the world, but you'll never be able to communicate that to people to get the support that you need, to get employees, to get funding, to get people to invest in your company. So good news, there's someone out there who's doing this work for us and researching and sharing her findings, and we can look at her work, study, and become better communicators. What are my final thoughts then? This episode and Vanessa's work, because after listening to the podcast, I did a deep dive on her website and her work. I watched her YouTube videos. It reminded me the importance of communication, verbal and nonverbal. In today's quick video, I shared with you the top 3 things that I took away from this episode of the Diary of the CEO with Vanessa Van Edwards, which are the importance of hand gestures when you're communicating, the impact that nonverbal communication of other people have on you, and vice versa. We can literally infect and be infected by other people. And 3, this is all information that we have available to us for us to learn and improve ourselves. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend you Googling her, looking at her work. I'm gonna leave the links below. Also, if you like this type of video, if you like this small like chats, pockets of knowledge, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything that is coming up. I'm usually trying to do a coffee chat, like a talk like this, but also a second video that is more like learning focused, sharing my screen, teaching a subject that I believe I'm very competent at. And yeah, Merry Christmas everyone, and I see you next time.